What is up, my friends, and welcome to another edition of the XFL Week in Review. I'm your host, Mark Perry, editor of XFL News Hub, your spring football media guru, and on this week's show, XFL team names and logos coming November 2nd. We'll get into that. The Rock talks about the stalled CFL talks. You hear from him, and so much more. All right, we are not live this week. We're recording this week's show because it got family obligations, and next week's show, of course, it's going to be Halloween. You guys will be all out and stuff. So, but we're still going to drop the show 8 o'clock every Monday, whether we're live or not. But the next 2 weeks are going to be big. We have a lot of XFL news to get into. So if you want to be part of the show, email podcast@XFL News Hub with your thoughts or record an MP3. Play it on next week's show. We appreciate that. Plus, hey, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll read it on next week's show. Stitcher, Audible, Player FM, Amazon, Spotify, all those platforms. Leave us a review. We appreciate that. And we are live every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, but not the next 2 weeks, on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. The XFL timeline. We just had this past weekend the Specialist Showcase, where the XFL put out the names of the players on the showcase. The draft is November 16th and 17th. Our own Mike Mitchell reported that there was talk that it was going to be in Las Vegas. We just heard this weekend from head coach Bob Stoops that is, in fact, the XFL draft will be taking place in Las Vegas. Whether it's open to the public or media, we don't know. But I would assume if it's going to be in Vegas, they're going to make a big deal out of it. So the XFL draft is taking place in Las Vegas. January 9th, 2023, the XFL training camp begins, and February 18th, 2023, the season begins. We are 117 days from XFL kickoff. Yes, I know what you're going to say. We don't have team names. We don't have logos, blah, 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 blah. But guess what? I think it's coming. We'll get into the news about that. We'll hear from The Rock. We will talk about the players that were part of Nick Novak's kicking thing. We also got a list from the XFL of the players, the quarterbacks that are working with Jordan Palmer. We'll get into that, plus your social media stuff. So without further ado, folks, let's just get into the week that was the XFL. So we got official-ish word from the XFL that team names and logos were in fact delayed due to Hurricane Ian. So if you've listened or watched the XFL Week in Review podcast, we talk about how Hurricane Ian was the possible cause of the XFL not releasing the team names and logos, something fans had long been waited. Now we have confirmation that, in fact, that is the case. Chris Mathis, sports director at KLAS TV CBS in Las Vegas, posted the following tweet. Don't know what this has to do with it, but XFL telling me delay in naming Vegas team and its colors and logo is because of Hurricane Ian. So we already reported this last before when we were talking about the activation events being canceled. We have a link to that, local activation events being canceled. We assume that that's what it is. That's kind of what we're saying, but this was sort of the official word now from the XFL of why everything got delayed. Just before Hurricane Ian hit the coast of Florida, the XFL had started organizing local activation events. The league was sending out emails to members of the XFL, the Huddle website, and season ticket holders, inviting them to lunches and happy hours. Then they were all canceled, quote, due to the forecasted Hurricane Ian anticipated to hit the Southeast later this week. We made the decision to postpone our planned local activation events, and now the rest is history. So Hurricane Ian rolled over Orlando, with even Disney World closing for a few days. Orlando is one of the XFL's 8 markets, but that was September 27th. We're almost a month later, and we did have no word until now from the XFL. So why the delay? That's what all fans have been asking. Well, several factors could be cause of delay. One, The Rock is embarking on the biggest movie premiere of his career, with Black Adam hitting theaters October 20th. His team is focused on hyping the movie as much as possible, with no room for anything else. Not only does the XFL have to compete with the NFL for media space, but we now have the Major League Baseball playoffs, which started October 7th and could go to as late as till November 5th. That played a factor in things too. The NHL season also started playing on October 7th, with the NBA starting its games on the 18th. So you see, the XFL had a small window to get their big announcement in, but there are more big news cycles on the way. Also, Election Day is Tuesday, November 8th. The nation and the new media cycle will be heavily focused on the results of that day. which is also 1 week from the XFL draft. So where does that leave the XFL? Do they wait until the XFL draft on November 16th to announce team names and logos? Now, Wednesday was and is the most optimal day for the XFL since it is the lull before NFL games crank up on Thursday. The local activation events back in September were scheduled for Wednesday and Thursday of that week. That leaves October 26th, which could be American League Championship Series Game 7 between the Yankees and Astros. That is not happening. They lost, so they're out. But there are 10 games on the NBA slate and 3 for the NHL. November 2nd, there are 11 games on the NBA slate, 2 in the NHL, and it also could potentially be a Game 5 of the World Series. So as you can see, Hurricane Ian threw a big wrench in the XFL's plan. As a frame of reference, the USFL debuted their team cities and names and logos in November 22nd, and their season started in April. So your guess is as good as mine. The key is waiting for these activation events emails to come out, and they have. And we'll get into that next. So the XFL has finally sent out local activation events, and I'm actually going to one too. So the XFL local activation events are back on schedule. So far, meet and greet notifications have been sent out to Huddle members who follow the San Antonio, Orlando, and St. Louis teams. We have an updated DC also was added to these local activation events. Basically what they are is, quote, coach will host chalk talk, take time to answer questions and spend time with you as he prepares for the season ahead in whatever city it's going. Appetizers will be provided. In the event in St. Louis, it will include not only head coach Anthony Beck, but also XFL president Russ Brandon. They know it's the biggest kind of franchise that they have, so it's no surprise that he would be there. These events are invite only, and you must RSVP. You can't just show up. Also, the XFL DC event is for November 3rd, which is a Thursday, and with Coach Reggie Barlow. So clearly, the number one question fans would ask at the time is, when are team names and logos coming? And we assume and hope we'll have some sort of answer before these events, but keep checking back for other notifications. Check back with XFL News Hub if we learn even more. But the XFL draft is set to take place on November 16th and 17th. The XFL just held its supplemental showcase on Saturday, and then Nick Novak's his specialist showcase took place on Sunday, October 23rd. So it looks like the XFL will be in full mode in November with schedule. We still need the schedule. We need the rules set all to come out before February. But the activation events are back on. So the question is, do we start getting teasers this week? Do we have the team names by November 2nd? Are they going to really go into these activation events with no team names, no merch? Or are they going to announce the team names at the activation events, but then that would get leaked online? So I'm really curious what the XFL plans on doing, because we are 117 days away from kickoff, and there's season tickets to be sold. There is merchandise to move. I mean, there's a lot of things that need to happen in the next 100 days. So we need to get these team names and logos out, and then the season ticket stuff to go on as well. So I'll be curious. If you're going to the event, leave a comment in there. I'll be at the DC event, so I will see my friends there. Stop by, say hello. You know what I look like, because if you watched the show or seen my picture anywhere. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Finally, we have stuff to talk about for the XFL. But the local activation events are back on. This is for Huddle. You got to be a member of the Huddle, which you can find that on XFL.com, or signed up for season tickets. It seems like they're picking one or the other. I guess whatever is the bigger group that they have. And so that's something to keep an eye out. And we'll have full coverage of all that event when we head out there in November. So November is going to be a huge month for the XFL. Are you excited? Because it's finally here. As part of his world tour promoting the Black Adam movie while in Toronto, XFL co-owner Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson sat down with George Kosh of BNN Bloomberg to talk WWE, ZOA, and other business ventures. They touched on the talks between the XFL and CFL, which came to a close in 2021 before the CFL kicked off abbreviated season. Let's hear what The Rock had to say.
In terms of the XFL, we talked about that before the camera started rolling. Yeah. Why do you think the third time is the charm for the launch of this new football league? And given your past ties here in Canada, do you think that there's an opportunity to really partner with the CFL here or other sort of financially distressed teams here to include them in the XFL?
Sure. Great question. Two-parter. Let me jump in on the first part is I do believe we got a real chance here. The third iteration of the XFL, and I know it's tough. The first one, and we were around, Vince McMahon, we were with Vince. We were babies back then, but myself and my business partner, Danny Garcia, we grew up with Vince, and we were with him in that first iteration of the XFL. The second iteration of the XFL was actually doing pretty good before we all got our butts kicked with COVID. Then we came in, we acquired it from Vince. I think we have a real shot here. We decided to take our time, not come out in 2021. We'll come out in 2022. We partnered with the NFL. We sat down with Roger Goodell, sat down with Troy Vincent, and all of their colleagues up at the league, and said, our goal here is just to grow the game of football. Can we partner? And the answer was yes. So between we have really staffed up. We have the best of the best in terms of the organization. I think we got a shot. I think spring football has a shot. Research has shown that fans are hungry for football all year round as long as it's quality. Mm-hmm. So we got a shot, and we're going to continue to work hard. And in terms of partnering, for example, like the XFL and the CFL, we were actually having some really deep conversations. We had done some deep dive conversations with the XFL, led by our good friend Larry Tannenbaum, and we were going down the pike, and we were looking for some sort of partnership, and we were all in alliance at that time for some sort of partnership between the XFL and the CFL in the spirit of growing the game, because we all love the game of football. And we got down the line, and eventually the conversation eventually those conversations started to stall. We all agreed respectfully, let's put the pencils down, wish each other the best of luck. And I love the CFL. I came out of the CFL. As a matter of fact, Wally Bono just sent me a video. It was good to see him. We always have this joke that I am I will always be Wally Bono's favorite player in my mind.
So it's been reported that the prairie teams of the CFL were less than enthusiastic, let's say, about partnering with the XFL. So the friendship clearly between Dwayne Johnson and Larry Tannenbaum has not died down since the talks of the CFL ended in 2021. According to reports, Johnson and Tannenbaum actually met while he was in town. So that was interesting that he didn't bring up Larry Tannenbaum's name again. The XFL in 2020 season was cut short, of course, due to, you heard him say it right there, the pandemic. And then the owner of XFL, Vince McMahon, put the league into bankruptcy. Johnson, business partner Danny Garcia and Redbird Capital Partners, purchased the asset at a bankruptcy for $15 million. The CFL didn't want to change basically its three-down rules or partner with a league that had not completed a season, which is understandable somewhat. CFL Commissioner Randy Ambrosie acknowledged the talks were helpful for the Canadian Football League. They eventually partnered, though, with Genius Sports to help grow the three-down game. Remember that, quote, the partnership will help facilitate the CFL's growth ambitions, expanding its audience in the U.S. while extending its reach into the international markets. Genius Sports will help the CFL to capitalize on the growth of the North American sports betting market, maximizing revenue engagement opportunities. And I believe the CFL gave up a fraction of the league or something like that, 10% of the league, to Genius Sports so that Genius Sports didn't have to pay or something like, or the CFL didn't have to pay. They just gave equity in the CFL to Genius Sports. I believe that that's what happened. Ambrosie did keep the door open in a statement at the time saying, quote, while we remain open to finding new ways to work together in the future, we and our XFL counterparts have jointly decided not to pursue any formal arrangements at this time. Now, due to NDAs signed at the time, it is unknown what happened between the XFL and CFL discussions or even how they got started and with whom. It seems like, based on these statements and what we know, MLSE and the XFL had a plan. Other CFL teams, however, were not buying that plan. The CFL is close to its playoffs. Black Adam is in theaters right now, and the XFL draft is supposed to take place in November 16th and 17th with the kickoff a week after the Super Bowl. But there we have Dwayne Johnson getting asked about what happened between the CFL and XFL, and clearly it's just something that didn't work out at now, but The Rock is still talking to Larry Tannenbaum. Now, why and what that is, we have no idea, but that relationship still stands tall, so to speak, and it's just something that we're going to have to see down the road. But it was nice to hear The Rock get at least a chance to talk about what happened between the XFL and CFL. XFL announces the players for the Nick Novak Specialist Showcase that took place this Sunday. So the XFL Communications Department, which is nice to see that, also came online this past week, tweeted a media relations announcement that the XFL is evaluating the following players at the Nick Novak Specialist Showcase that took place this past Sunday, the 23rd. This event was previously announced by the XFL back in March. This is the first time XFL 3.0 has published an official list of evaluating players, which all of us super nerds got really excited about, of course. This event took place in San Diego, California, focused specifically on kickers, punters, and long snappers, which will give players a chance to exhibit their skill set, and XFL player personnel as well to show them what's up. Novak Kicking and Consulting are hosting the event itself. Listed are the 26 kickers, 20 punters, and 21 long snappers, which will give the XFL a wide variety of specialists for the position. We have the list on XFL News Hub if you really want to nerd out. We have a few notable names on the list, such as former Dallas Renegades kicker Austin McGinnis, who was recently part of the New Orleans Breakers during the 2022 USFL season. One of the most popular punters in football, Marquette King, was part of the St. Louis Battlehawks. We followed him, talking about how he was should he be part of the XFL? Well, he was there in 2020, and then he was at this. I've seen his videos. If you follow him on social media, some of his punting videos are pretty insane. Now, Marquette announced on Twitter a couple months ago that he'd receive a draft pool invite from the XFL. A few others that were part of the XFL in 2020 were kicker Ernesto Lacayo, the Seattle Dragons, stepper Brian Coroy, who went from the defensive end to long snapper with the DC Defenders, I remember him, and Nick Truesdale, Tampa Bay Vipers, who was most recently with the New Jersey Generals in the USFL. I thought he was a tight end, but now is that Nick Truesdale? I guess so. However, he was listed as tight end with a complete list of the new and exciting faces coming to the XFL in 2023. It'll be interesting to see who gets selected to represent each team. So Marquette, of course, is back. Marquette King. The XFL continues to put the pieces together of the puzzle. We're just over 3.5 weeks away from the XFL draft and a month away from the supplemental draft on the 22nd of November. It'll be a busy fourth quarter for the XFL heading into the 2023 season that kicks off February 18th. Be sure to stay tuned to XFL News Hub for all these developing stories. So there you have it. Check out the list. There's definitely some notable names that you've heard of. Again, there's only 8 teams, and they brought in 26 kickers. So clearly they have the gamut of the top guys out there. But there's not a lot of former XFL kickers on that list. I mean, just some of the ones that he had mentioned, guys that we kind of followed on social media, but we'll have to find out. We will see, my friends. All right, we'll take a commercial break. I'll be right back with your social right after this. Stay tuned, my friends. What's up, XFL Army? If you're a fan of the XFL News Hub and you have a telephone, which I know all of you do because you're sitting there playing on your phones all the time, then why not download the XFL News Hub app? That's right, it's on iTunes. It's on Android. We have an Android version and an iPhone version of the XFL News Hub app. So what do you get? You get the latest news from XFL News Hub, the premier source of XFL news in the universe. Plus, you get push notifications when we have breaking news. You will be the first to know. You can leave a comment on some of the news right from your phone. Plus, you get this podcast on your phone as well. Remember, you can leave us reviews on the Google Play Store or iTunes. It links to other social media, our other social media accounts, and so much more. Be in the know. I know you're on your phones. People are on their phones all the time. They never get off their phones. So why not just download the XFL News Hub app on your Android or iPhone today? All you need to do is go to the Google Play Store or iTunes and just type in XFL News Hub. That's XFL News Hub. Download our app on your phone today. All right, my friends, we are back. Let's hit the social media stuff real quick and wrap up this week's program. First up on about the local activation events on the Facebook, Leon says, when is Houston? I haven't heard Houston mentioned just yet. That's something we'll have to keep an eye on. But I haven't seen all of the locations. Just I would assume most of them are out there. I haven't seen them officially, but I think I've seen at least 5 of the locations. So if you've gotten an invite, definitely message us or tag us in a tweet or something like that. We'd love to see, what's out there and what they're planning on doing. Remember, it is invite only. Do not show up. We purposely did not show you the location in our post there because, hey, you didn't sign up, you didn't do the work, you can't just show up, and you need to RSVP. But I'm super excited about me and my wife will be in attendance for the DC event. So should I just dress like this? I have my Washington, D.C. XFL shirt. I've got my XFL hat. Hopefully we have the same name so I can keep my DC Defenders stuff. So I'm super excited to finally, it's been so long to get involved and get excited about the XFL. Team names and logos delayed due to Hurricane Ian. This was just kind of more other people confirming such a thing. Brett says this was 3 weeks ago. How long can it be used as an excuse? We kind of went over what our thoughts were about that. Let's see. Jason says, I am out in a deposit back in July. Still got nothing, not even any hype on the St. Louis just a few months before kickoff. At least 2019, there was a lot of hype, and you saw that hype did to the St. Louis Dome. There's no media hype. I feel it's going to be into the season as a whimper. I'm a little concerned about the hype. I agree kind of, on that. Like you're trying to, get people excited about the league, and it's been this kind of delay. You're basically, it is full on November, December, January. You got 3 months to hype this thing that get people excited, which you can do, but there's rules. I just have to think everything is kind of ready to go. And with the power of social media, you don't need weeks to announce that you're going to do something. Listen, The Rock, Danny Garcia, they know how to hype stuff. Just check out all the promotions they do with movies and TV shows. So I think we'll be fine. It was just a little timing. That's all. But I think definitely by next week, we will have something big. I hope. All right, about the Rock, talking about the XFL, CFL stuff, Rock Talks, Jayhawks teams. David says USFL and XFL and USFL need to merge, but the XFL needs to announce teams, units, cities. I say it's not going to happen. Okay. One guy says could see the Argos having a CFL team as well as an XFL team, double dip into 2 leagues without compromising each league's rules and brand. That's an interesting one. I've never heard that one before. That would kind of solve both problems, per se. Do you imagine they did that? They had 2 Argo teams, one playing the CFL, one playing the XFL. That would be kind of interesting. Wayne says the CFL is destined to be the XFL's farm system. This ridiculous ratio rule will always make the CFL look minor league. I'm not reading any of this because I'm going to be accused of saying it myself, which has happened. I've read comments and then I get hate mail that I said whatever. And I'm like, that was a comment from the show. That wasn't me saying it. Just pointing out there. All right, on to the Twitter. So we had the list the XFL put out. We got our Pat Ruffino is working on an article that will probably be out sometime soon before you see by the time this comes out, there'll be an article out about that. We're going more in depth. But the XFL is evaluating the following QBs at the upcoming Jordan Palmer minicamp. Remember, he already put videos out, so we'll have to check out, keep a eye on Jordan Palmer's Instagram account. We'll see if there's any more videos he put out there. But Caleb Ellerby, Jarrett Guarantano, De'Ara King, that's the name we have there. Jalen McClendon, I believe, is a name there. Cole McDonald, Steven Montez, Jawan Pass, Anthony Russo. That sounds new to me. I'm not sure. Brian Scott, of course, that's the big name out there. Brandon Silvers, Carson Strong seems to be a new name that we haven't seen. Khalil Tate and Ryan Willis are some other names that we've seen before. But what about the guys that were on the list? Drew, Montez, and Francois were all seen. Somebody posted this, and this is a good point. Drew, Montez, and Francois were all seen in Palmer's IG at potential XFL QBs and are no longer listed on there. So I think Montez is on there. Yeah, Steven Montez is on there, but he's right about Francois and Drew Plitt, right? Was that his name? I could say it wrong, but something like that. Forget his name. So there's some quarterbacks out there, some new names, but I wonder what happened to the old names. Did the XFL not like what they see, or they saw enough and things are cool? We'll have to find out about that. On to our social other stuff. We got an emails from Jim checking in. He's written a couple times, and I never had a chance to read his stuff. He says, Mark, XFL rocks. Would you happen to know any updates on the XFL ticket sales? 2 weeks ago, you reported that a follower pointed out the Battlehawks were leading the league with 15,000 plus season tickets sold. I'm wondering how those tickets are selling. We really need folks in the seats for television overall atmosphere. I'm rooting for the USFL, but not a fan of the hub model with basically one home team. Yeah, I haven't heard anything about tickets. And this is what's going to be exciting, is because we are going to be, being able to go to these events, they're going to hype out, season ticket hold stuff. The hype is about to start. I believe November 2nd is going to be, I'm hoping that we get a tease or something for, this week, but we have to know something by November 2nd. That is my opinion, that there is something going on with Danny Garcia and Jerry Cardinal of Redbird Capital in New York City about some kind of thing, but they still don't need the team names and logos to talk about the XFL and this kind of sports business thing going on in New York. That's the 26th. Maybe they might tease something from there, but we'll have to kind of wait and see on that. But I think November 2nd is the day that I don't know if they drop it, but there'll be something where we'll kind of have a timeline. And I think that's basically, I'm going to ask, that's my first question. So what's the timeline here? I mean, if you want people to buy season tickets, I think, I'm curious if there's some type of holdup with Las Vegas and that caused things to slow down. I will also say this, that there was things not locked in place. I did read this somewhere. When the XFL announced its cities and venues, that the venues were not locked on contracts at the time. There was a couple of them that weren't, and it kind of pissed Vince off, or they kind of forced the hand a little bit. But that has happened. So part of the delay could be a problem with Las Vegas. If you got one team that's not in there, and you're trying to schedule games, and you can't do anything else because Las Vegas, we didn't get a stadium yet. So Las Vegas could have been the piece of the puzzle that they're struggling with. We'll have to find out. Also, just for an FYI, the Fan Control Football is having tryouts. I know a lot of football players listen to our show. So their tryouts are taking place in LA and Atlanta in December and January. I'll give you a little rumor here. There might be tryouts in Florida, DC, and Houston. They might have other Fan Control Football tryouts. Also, Indoor Football League is having a bunch of tryouts too for local teams as well. You just need tape. You need to get out there, and especially that the XFL now has that partnership with the Indoor Football League. We're super excited to support the Massachusetts Pirates until we buy our own team. What? Did I say that? Yeah. I would like to start our own XFL News Hub Indoor Football League team. And I'm serious. And I have a plan. But we won't get into that. That's way down the road. Way down the road. I need to pay some bills first. Jim says, downloaded the XFL News Hub app. Couldn't be happier. Do you think the XFL Championship will be held in a predetermined site or with a team with the best record? Also, we need to figure out what the championship trophy will be called. Jim, Battlehawks Nation. I'm fairly certain that you're going to keep it in the hub, keep it in Dallas for this first year. I would be stunned if it was anywhere, maybe San Antonio, but either Dallas or San Antonio, I think would be the two spots that they would have the championship game in. You got your whole hub there. This is the first season. You're trying to cut down on costs. No need to travel to St. Louis or DC to have your championship game. Just have it in Texas, and I think you'll be fine there. And finally, he says, as always, Jim says, XFL News Hub is awesome. I think it is frustrating the XFL is taking its sweet time on making announcements. Does The Rock have to be present to announce team names and color schemes? I don't think he has to, and I know he's a busy guy. I wanted your comment regarding that. I mean, he is the hype man to get people interested in the XFL. He is the guy. Like Danny Garcia posting stuff on social won't get as much of interest as The Rock posting stuff. So I think that played a role in it. I think other, the NBA and NHL coming online might have played a role in it too. And, it was just unforeseen. And we just have to kick it to now. Now, I mean, the 26th is open to stuff. And I think November 2nd, if we don't hear anything by November 2nd, I'm going to be floored. I will be worried because don't you want to sell season tickets and people to buy merch? You're talking about right during the holiday season. Like even if you just announce 4, I was thinking just do 4, 4 1 week and 4 the next. That's fine too. You don't have to do it all at once. I also think it would be great if they did something on ESPN, which would be cool. He says, on another front, Roger Goodell dropped a bit on the NFL. Will consider adding a whole division in Europe. I'm thinking this will be a combination of relocation and expansion. This will take some time, i.e. 4 to 7 years, I'm guessing. This got me thinking about XFL internationally. Now that the NFL threw out the possibility of putting 4 teams in Europe instead of 1 to help out with the logistics of just having 1 team, it makes a whole lot more sense. Not sure the XFL could take on such a move. Also, the ELF is expanding, and if that league holds on, there will be other competition. I think now that the XFL, after year 1 or 2, expand by 1 team in the West and 1 team in the East. In the West, I think it should be San Diego or Oakland, not LA. And the team in the East, probably New York, play out of Red Bull Arena. After 3 or 4 years, add Mexico City, Midwestern team like Milwaukee. Mexico City would embrace XFL football with huge attendance figures, I predict. Milwaukee, who used to host half of the Packers games, gold season ticket holders, could play out their baseball facility. It's good dimensions. If not New York, could it be the Toronto Argonauts? Yeah, I think any kind of expansion. The biggest thing that I got from the chit chat about Roger Goodell, what really kind of struck me about Raj's take on this is how it wasn't just kind of like, oh yeah, we'd love to do that one day. It's like, no, we would need to have 4 teams and play in the division. We would need to have 4 teams. It was very specific. Like, and in order for the NFL to grow itself, it needs to expand into other markets, not in the United States. You already got it. Adding another team in another market, big deal. It doesn't, putting another team in San Diego doesn't really change anything. You need to go global now. And that's where the NFL could put 4 teams in Europe. Heck, and if Europe doesn't work out, then you move the 4 teams back to the United States. But those teams need players. And you can't do that with just the college football. And that's where the XFL, the USFL, all of these trying to grow the game. The Rock keeps talking about trying to grow the game of football. And what does that really mean? It means more interest and really growing the game for the NFL, because that provides more opportunities for players. And, the shift is on. And I mean, you think about the NFL making a ton of money now. Could you imagine if it was a global game? Now, I don't think the NFL could outkick soccer, because soccer is easy. You have a ball and you have a net, done. Football is expensive, but could football be the second most popular sport in the world, or third most globally popular? I mean, basketball is easy to do too. You know what I mean? So, but that's how the NFL needs to expand. Adding more teams doesn't really do much. Is it going to make the TV contract bigger if they have more teams in the United States? No. But if they put 4 teams in Europe, that changes the dynamic big time. So if the NFL wants to make that jump, they need to have a partner that's going to feed them, not only testing the rules and all this other stuff, but also a place that could feed them players, because you're going to need a lot more. I mean, you're talking 200 players or 4 teams and coaches, and you need a feeder system that's beyond just college football, and that's where the XFL comes in. Now, why didn't the NFL partner with the XFL in the first version versus the post-COVID version, the 3.0 version? Did they not? I mean, Oliver Luck knows people in the NFL, so I'm not really sure what was the change in philosophy from 2020. But maybe the NFL saw enough, and they were like, "Yeah, this is going to work," and then they really like the people behind the XFL. So there you have it. All right, my friends, that's it for this week's show. Make sure to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate that. Remember, and if you want to be part of the show, podcast at XFL News Hub with your thoughts, or record an MP3 or video on your phone. We'll play it on next week's show. Voicemail 888-430-7692, extension 3. And we're usually live, but not this go-round. But our shows will come out live on Monday at 8 p.m. Our show will not be live, of course, this Monday, because I'm taping it, or next Monday because it's Halloween. I'm going to be out with the family, hanging out, probably taking Finn on a walk to get candy, so I can hang out with you guys. But that's going to be a huge week. And actually, I might even see some of you guys at the DC event. And we've got guys from XFL News Hub. They're going to be at all of these events. So we're pretty excited about that as well. And I'm working on some good guests in the future, some big guests. I think you guys are going to like it. And it's go time, my friends. It is go time. November is all on, and it's going to be huge. And I'm super excited to experience it with you. For all of us that have been stuck around from 2020, 2 years later, to finally have teams, we've got coaches, and it's all just finally coming. God is good. That's all I have to say about that. All right, my friends, that's it for me, folks. God bless as always, and I will see you all later.